Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Greetings at UCMC Press Center. We start our day with presentation of the analysis of human rights violations in Crimea for 2019. Our guests are Eskender Bariev, chairman of the board of the Crimean Tatar Resource Center, member of the Majlis of the Crimean Tatar, and Elvir, Sagirman, communications manager of the Crimean Tatar Resource Center. Welcome. Good afternoon, dear ladies and gentlemen. First of all, we would like to express our gratitude for you, that you are interested in these matters, that you are interested in what is going on in Crimea and in violations of human rights in Crimea, and we try to provide systemic analysis. It is really important in order that this information be brought directly to people, to missions, to other human rights protection organizations, and to have proper response, because we do not have another way to protect the rights of our people, to prevent torture and other violations. Our press conference coincided with an important day for Ukraine. This is Unity Day in Ukraine and signing of the Act of Unity. And I greet everyone with this festivity. Those events that happened more than 100 years ago, still some challenges exist, and we will provide you with some details. And this is maybe the results of those violations of human rights in Crimea. These may be the results of the events, or maybe those wishes of occupants. They want to influence, they want to destroy the unity of Ukraine. And at noon today, here there will be a press conference dedicated to modern challenges, to the processes that were ongoing more than 100 years ago. Now we are going to our topic. This is the topic of the analysis of human rights violations in Crimea for 2019. We will be trying to demonstrate the dynamics of these violations and comparison with the 2018 and 2019. We prepared graphs and diagrams in order to provide this information clearly, to see the dynamics that is ongoing. And also our task is to bring this information in a simple form, the systemic information that was elaborated by the experts of the Crimean Tatar Resource Center. For 2019, our center recorded 89 searches, 157 detentions, and also 194 interrogations, and 43 new arrests in criminal cases. Out of these 43, 2 in absentia, 33 verdicts in relation to political prisoners, and more than 200 extensions of and also 90 cases for the highest attainable state of health, and 69 convoys of political prisoners. And you see here on the screen our presentation and diagrams, and in each of the category we will be trying to provide more detailed information, including about the violations of the rights of representatives of indigenous people, Crimean Tatars. The first category is searches. Here on the screen you see 2 tables. First, overall number of searches as 86, including in the homes of Crimean Tatars 64. Compared with 2018, the number is identical. In 2018, there were 92 searches, we recorded them, and in comparison with 2017, 24 cases more. We had 62 in 2017. Maximum indicator for 2019 were seen in March and June, and they had political and context or religious subcontext. This was about Hizbut Tahrir and Jehovah Witnesses cases, and also alleged armed formations cases. In this way, occupied power tries to discredit indigenous peoples of Crimea and Ukrainian activists in the eyes of Russian and international public, and they view them as terrorists and extremists. And Russian Federation is trying in different ways to bring this information about Hizbut Tahrir and Jehovah Witnesses of Jehovah. They speak about these organizations as terror organizations, and we participated in the meeting of OSCE, and Russians, they actively were trying to demonstrate that Hizbut Tahrir is a terror organization. There were searches recorded in mosques of Crimea, also in cells of political prisoners, and in the houses of Majlis of Crimean Tatar people. Next category are detentions. Overall number of detentions in 2019, 157. Out of them, 127 in the houses of representatives of Crimean Tatar people. If we compare it with the 2018, 30 cases more in 2019 than in 2018. If we compare with the 2017, this is 128 less. There is another category. This is belonging to Hizbut Tahrir, that is prohibited in Russian Federation. Also detentions. It is related with previous category. This was in May and June. And also there were mass detentions because of the mass action in the Red Square in Moscow, and also detentions were near Supreme Court of the Russian Federation when our people came to Moscow to demonstrate that human rights are violated, and all those who were detained and arrested and convicted people, that they are not terrorists. One more peculiarity is a systemic and ungrounded detention at the administrative border with Crimea, and alleged participation in Namanji Belizhihan battalion, that is, and the Jehovah Witnesses organization and Hizbut Tahrir that are prohibited in Russian Federation, alleged calls to extremism and terror acts, production of explosive substances, and alleged demonstration of prohibited symbols. And despite these accusations in production of explosive substances, as we know, no one proved it. Occupation authorities, they were not able to prove that they found any elements from which it is possible to make qualification that some explosive may be made of them. Now interrogations, questioning, and conversations, overall number 194, including Crimean Tatar 127. This indicator increases the indicator of 2018 for 42 cases compared with 2017 for 152 cases less. We recorded in 2018 340 such cases. The majority of interrogations were made after illegal detentions, including at the administrative border with Crimea. This was done against Crimean Tatar, pro-Ukrainian activists, left activists, religious activists, imams of mosques, and also Crimeans were detained in connection with Hizbut Tahrir, Jehovah Witnesses, and those who allegedly participated in the Naman battalion, and those who allegedly called to extremism and terror acts, or those who created allegedly explosive substances. And also people were arrested, and they are accused that they belong to some militant groups, but they are the members of Eskender that is officially registered in Ukraine, and this organization deals with patriotic upbringing. This organization does not bring any threat and never brought it. The next category of arrests: in 2019 we recorded 335 cases of arrests, 242 out of them in relation to Crimean Tatar people. There are several subgroups. Out of 335 cases, 242 were made concerning indigenous peoples, 43 in absentia, 33 in relation to political prisoners in Crimea, and 252, this is the continuation of sentences of custody. So indicators of 2019 exceeds 2018. Then we recorded 207 cases, 145 out of them concerning Crimean people. And experts of our center believes that the decisions of the courts in the occupied Crimean and Russian Federation, their decisions show that these decisions that are illegal, politically motivated, illegal and criminal. Arrests and convictions show that they fight those who think differently, and with those religious and political convictions of people in Peninsula. And these extensions of arrests that are 252, that shows that they do these actions against Crimean Tatars and Ukrainians specifically. So there are special categories, special blocks. The first category, convicted in his book Tahrir case and Obligement, 16 people, 3 people were accused for participation in so-called illegal armed formation in the territory of Ukraine. 5 people more were convicted for espionage and treason to the benefit of Kiev. 5 people, 3 people convicted for alleged calls for terror or extreme acts, and 2 cases, and these are one person Pickett and Vijaya Kashka case, 1 person. On this slide you may see people who in this period were illegally taken into custody. We should note that only 35 people, these are people in Hizbut Tahrir case, also in this period. They took people in custody on suspicion of treason, explosives, and the violation of territorial integrity of Russian Federation, attempted acts, and a number of cases also were at the administrative border with the occupied Crimea. The next category, violations of the right for fair trial. In 2019, we recorded 692 such cases. Out of them, 503 in relation to Crimean Tatars. This is a record in these 3 years. In 2017 and 2018, we recorded 515 and 492 cases respectively. And these dynamics, first of all, we relate to the increase of the number of political prisoners, and as a result, the increase in the number of court trials. And they brought 33 verdicts in so-called criminal cases. 43 people were illegally taken to custody, 2 of them in absentia, and there were 252 cases of extension of terms in custody. Also, one peculiarity of 2019, that this is massive monetary fines against Crimean Tatar people who held event in the Red Square and near the Supreme Court of the Russian Federation. And this indicator showed that discrimination continues against ethnic groups and indigenous peoples and pro-Ukrainian activists, and these figures clearly demonstrate this dynamics. And it should be noted that our experts believe, and international organizations also made some declarations, and they condemned these actions. Russian Federation illegally use its legislation in political goals in order to suppress non-violent struggle of Crimean Tatars and their protest against occupation of Crimea. The next slide, violations for the highest level of achievement of highest level of physical and psychological health. In 2019, we recorded 134 such violations of 18 relations to Crimean Tatars. It should be noted that this indicator practically twice exceeds the indicator of 2018 and more than 3 times of 2017. Then we knew about 57 and 38 cases of violations respectively. 2019 is characterized by mass cases of non-provision of proper medical assistance to detainees in Crimea. And during the year we saw that the state of health deteriorates, and the officers of the colonies prisons did not provide the medicines that were given by relatives, and in this case the health of the prisoners decreased even more. Also, there was physical and psychological pressure on activists and political prisoners, and also we include here the cases of non-voluntary psychological psychiatric examination. There were such cases in 2019. The next category, this is convoying of political prisoners. This is a difficult procedure because our compatriots they bring them to the territory of Russian Federation from the occupied Crimea, or they are convoyed back. This is violation of international law, because illegal convoying, illegal transfer of the citizens of Ukraine to Russian Federation, this is illegal. In 2019, there were 96 such cases, 86 out of them in relation to representatives of Crimean Tatar people. So some political prisoners were conveyed. Vladimir Balogh, who was released according to the scheme 35 of 35, left activist Evgeny Karakashev, Roman Mendevidov, accused in state prison Dmitry Dolgopolov, Anna Sukhanosova, and also Yolta, Hizbut Tahrir case, and Simferopol case, Hizbut Tahrir, Chusharais case, Hizbut Tahrir, and the University Osmanov, Hizbut Tahrir case, and also arrested resident of Simferopol who was accused of alleged state treason, Van Yatskin. Also, during the year, there were massive cases of convoy. And this is not only bringing people in cars from Simferopol pretrial detention facility to some pretrial detention facility in Rostov or in Moscow. This is a difficult process, and often cases were recorded. We got information that they brought it in the small space, and person was standing all the way, or they went through, or the prisoners were brought through different pretrial detention facilities. They had contacts with different prisoners, and for people who are not criminals, it is really difficult. This is a very serious psychological influence. We consider this as a pressure on political prisoners. The next category, victims. In this case, we say about the victims that suffered along the whole 2019. Such cases were recorded when an inmate died after he was beaten by other inmates in April there was a case, and only on the 15th of May we got this information. This is the information of the Investigative Committee of Russian Federation. Also, in April, 61-year-old Rashid Yagayev went missing, and in July, in the Nikolaevka, Simferopol region, his body was found on the shore with the weight that was attached to his neck. And the 61-year-old Crimean Tatar Rashid Yagayev, he was doing business. He had several stores. In the next case, on the 11th of July, in the region of Aromatna village in Bakhchisaraysk region, a body was found on the 10th of July. Fakhri Mustafayev, he was active socially, and his close relatives also are socially active. Near Zalesna village in Bakhchisaraysk region, and 20-year-old Crimean Tatar Inar Yupov was found on the 16th of September. He disappeared in August. On the 9th of October in occupied Crimea, on the shore near Nikolaevka, body was found. A body of a young man was found. And on the 13th of October, in the investigative isolation facility number 1 in Simferopol, a person died. Also, 16-year-old Ivan Babieshka was found on the 9th of December. He went missing on the 26th of November 2019. Due to the information provided by Lisa Alert, we recorded a case of a person who went missing. This is a 54-year-old Verov Nurin Nazimovich, and he went missing on the 8th of November 2019, and we found this information that his body was found. Now, information about those who went missing, no information about this people in 2018, when Maxim Kaplyenko went missing. He is the father of ex-player of the team of Ukraine, defender of Tbilisi Dynamo, Eskender Kaplyenko. No information about Maxim Kaplyenko on the in this investigative committee site. And Suyunov Arsen Kazimовich also went missing, and he didn't have any documents on him. The next category, violations of religious rights. We recorded about 11 such violations. This is connected with the Friday prayer in Dubki, in Simferopol region. Some officers of police came, they tried to stop the prayer, then they checked imams. On the 17th of March in Sarasu region in Belogorsk, there was a prayer dedicated to those who were illegally detained, and the representatives of the spiritual department of Muslims of Crimea and the officers were trying to stop this process. On the 8th of June, the arbitrary court of Crimea broke the agreement for the premise that for the Orthodox Church of Ukraine, and they want to get the 12,000 rubles to the budget as the fee. Also, in 2013, some land plot was allocated for construction of cathedral, and the occupants started construction illegally. They started to build some housing buildings. So this is not only persecution against Muslims, there are also persecutions against Kievan Patriarchate and against Jehovah's Witnesses. Also on the 5th of July, Russian officers in Zarechna carried out some investigative actions, and they videotaped those people who participated in the Friday's prayer. And on the 25th of October, Russian security officers in Zaryechny carried out some actions. Eskender, and we have 11 cases. We see, we have to analyze them. We see pressure, and that they were trying to ban, to hold any religious rights from one side, and from the other side we see these trials, and I would say forceful seizure of the territory of premises that relate to religious organizations, including Ukrainian Orthodox Church of the Kievan Patriarchate, Muslim communities premises. So we recorded such cases. The next category, Elvir, please. Next category, violation of ecosystem of Crimea, violation of environmental norms. We documented 10 cases in 2019. They are characterized by deterioration of environment in the territory of the peninsula, pollution of environment, pollution of seawater. There were repeated cases when locals said that their state of health deteriorated, and they said that there are some emissions, they are in not good health, and they say that the environmental situation deteriorates. Sagir river that was mentioned, it is now green because of the minimum level of water in Kerch. There were cases recorded when illegally there were some excavations or other cases in Koktebel. In summer, they took samples of seawater for analysis. The results showed big violations from the norm, and in Feodosia, local residents asked to close Central Beach because it was heavily polluted. Also, some cases were recorded in Sevastopol. Near the sea, there were dark red waters, and in Молодежное, Agrarное, Gresovsky, people said about deterioration of the quality of air because of the some enterprises that are 9 kilometers from the highway. Also about propaganda in education, and we recorded some cases where the rights for education were violated. This is connected with the cases when they didn't allow to open Crimean Tatar classes and didn't provide some they didn't help in creation of environment to study Crimean Tatar languages, Crimean Tatar language, Ukrainian language, and we see this trend in 2019, and such cases were recorded in some schools in the territory of Crimea, in Simferopol. Also, propaganda is connected with the fact that children in the process of education, they are involved in some events, in some military events. They are told, and this is propaganda, they speak about spread of extremism or also influence of extremism in religious organizations on the conscience, and we believe that this is propaganda and this is illegal. I won't go into details about the cases, but I would like to mention one case on the 13th of November in the territory of School 26 in Simferopol. They put a monument to Soviet design of the firearms Mikhail Kalashnikov with the machine gun in his arms, and this tells us a lot. Now, violations of cultural rights. Here we were able to record 5 cases when cultural rights were violated. This is first of all connected with the reconstruction of Bakhchisarai Han Mosque, and we told about these cases before. under the pretext of reconstruction works, they destroyed the complex, its authenticity, and we should note that Khan Mosque is the unique monument, and also in Kerch, in Patikapi and Mitridat, there were violations. Also, they demolished the coffee shop, and archaeologists carried out some excavation works in the cemetery, and this raised concern of Crimean Tatars and other activists. And Crimea really got information that in Khersones, Tavrichesky, this is the World Heritage of UNESCO site. They carry out some works, and there are many metal and wooden structures that were put there. Next category, this is deterioration. This is hardening of convictions for political prisoners. Before, we didn't have this category. We found 10 such cases. In Kirov, Part 2, Article 205.5. This was participation in activity of terror organization. They replaced it with the article with Part 1, organization of activity of terror organization. So they try to harden the convictions to have maximum terms. And we see such a picture when sentences of political prisoners, this verdicts for 17 years, 20 years. So they do not have prospects, good prospects for being released soon. 8 cases, criminal cases, Article 278 of Criminal Code. This is a forceful seizure of power or ceaseful holding of power. And we clearly understand that these people were not trying to seize or hold it. And we see that they hardened this article because the verdicts, according to this article, they are longer. Also, I would like to draw your attention to the fact that Eskender Sagirman occupation court initiated the FSB, the investigator of FSB started the case against him, second case, Part 2, Article 205.2 of Criminal Code. This is public call to terror acts or public propaganda of terror activities. And also Elvir Tasonov, Article 205.5. So they change also the article for hardening the case from participation activity of terror acts to Part 1, organization of terror attacks. Also bad conditions and violations of the rights of political prisoners. In 2019, we know about 21 cases when political prisoners were brought to special blocks, to isolation facilities, and to one-person cells. So you may find this information about these prisoners in our report. Also, improper conditions of holding and hardening of conditions of custody. According to lawyer Aider Zamatov, Hizbut Tahrir case members were hold in the cell with those who suffer from HIV/AIDS, and there were bad sanitary conditions. Also, Hizbut Tahrir case, they got only 1 hour of visits instead of 2, because during the visit they spoke Crimean Tatar language. So we see this discrimination when relatives want to speak their native language in communication with political prisoners, and occupants do not allow to provide medicines to Ali Prihodько because he is accused of terrorism and production of explosive substances. So there are many examples. You may find this information in our report. Next category is illegal call to Russian army and illegal military trainings. And we include this category in each report because there are regular military exercises in Crimea, there is militarization of peninsula, propaganda of military service, and illegal call to Russian army. We repeatedly noted that those military trainings, they violate environment. This is grave violation of international law. According to Black Sea Fleet Press Service, more than 150 trainings of different types, in the course of which they carried out more than 500 military exercises and use of arms. Also, on the peninsula, there are repeated calls to serve in Russian army. In autumn 2019 in peninsula, they held 10th call to the army, and they planned to get 2,600 Crimeans for the military service. And this is violation of 55 article of the Geneva Convention and in the 51st article of the Geneva Convention. And there is call to Russian Federation to stop military conscription to the army or to auxiliary services. Also, Prosecutor's Office of Crimea carries out procedural actions concerning these actions for call to the army of part 1 of Article 438. So there are other violations. I won't go into detail. There are 4 slides of different cases. You will be able to get this information on our site. The next category, I would like to give the floor to Eskender. We were trying to elaborate it to see the dynamics in 3 years of those violations. We made a graph of the comparative analysis 2017-2019. Why we took 3 years? This is enough to make some conclusions. Why we didn't include 2014, 2015, and 2016, because all the categories on the graph, these are searches, detentions, interrogation, arrests, fair trial, right to health, and convoying. It is difficult to get information for 2014, 2016. We have it, but it's not full. That's why we took these 3 years. If you look at these graphs, we see orange line and blue is 2017, red 2018, and yellow 2019. So the biggest number of searches were in 2018, the smallest number in 2017. We can come to conclusion that there is a systemic order, systemic policy, because the number of searches year after year in the framework of some plan is carried out. About detentions, here we see that in 2017 there were many more detentions compared with 2019 and 2018. 2019, we see dynamics of increase in this category. We believe that in 2017, due to detention, and we record these detentions at the administrative border, after searches in the streets, and we believe that in 2017 there was more active policy connected with threatening of people, and in 2017 there were mass one-person pickets that provided such a high dynamics. Also interrogations. These categories are closely related with detention. That's why 2017 is also characterized by high number of interrogations after detentions. Next, we see category of arrests. This is more connected with new arrests. We see a static indicators. They do not coincide, and in the category of arrests, we include arrests that are new and extension of terms and verdicts. Next category that clearly demonstrates that the number of violations of right for a fair trial is clearly seen in 2019. This is connected with the decisions of so-called courts for new arrests and appearance of the new courts for arrests in absentia, and also extension of sentences. And in 2019, the number is higher compared with 2017 and 2018. Right to health, we see the highest indicator in 2019. Like in previous category of fair trial, it shows that the number of political prisoners increases, and those actions that violate the right to health, they increase in number. And also convoying. In 2019, it is clearly seen. This is connected with the fact that occupation authority continues illegal actions in relation to our compatriots. They systemically bring them to the territory of the Russian Federation to hold them in pretrial detention facilities, to carry out trials, because in Crimea there are more and more compatriots in the courtrooms who support the compatriots, and they also bring them out because they want to make verdicts and to hold them in the colonies in the territory of the Russian Federation. The next diagram. For the first time, we elaborated such a diagram in order to clearly see this, and this will be placed on this site of Crimean Data Center. This diagram will be dynamic. And today we got good news that Rustem Vaitov today was released. And Rustem Vaitov, he lost 5 years of his life. This is a person who has a sick child, but it is great that he will be able to go back to his family. But we see the trend of 2019 when occupation authorities harden verdicts and replace articles with more hard ones to increase the terms. So here on this plate we see clear differentiation. Those who were provided with verdicts and they served their sentences, these are 42, maybe 41 now, because Rustem Vaitov is now released. He was released today. And we assure that Uprimov also will be released. We do not have full information. 51 is held in they are held in the pretrial detention facility, so we may say that 92 political prisoners are directly behind bars of FSB in pretrial detention facilities and colonies. Also, there are some limitations or suspended sentences. Terracotta, and you see this next category. You see the 17 people who are persecuted, and this is the trials in abstention on those who are in the mainland Ukraine, and the court here and the criminal cases were started against them. And green color, these are those who were released. The overall number is 165. We follow some other processes, and this diagram, it will be systemically revised. Rustem Vaitov is now from the category of convicted. From this yellow sector, he goes to the green sector now. Because these people, they remain political prisoners. And you may follow this information on the site to see the category, whether the category increases or decreases and transfers from the categories to other categories. Also, we work on the diagram concerning victims in the occupied Crimea. And today we are working on the new classification that we will inform the public soon, and all organizations that are interested in getting this information. Now we are ready for questions. Dear participants, please raise your hand. I believe that we provided a lot of information. Crimean News Agency. I would like to specify about the number of political prisoners. You said 156, maybe 65, and there should be a list in January. The list for the swap. Do you have any information about this? We repeatedly hear in the media that a list is being prepared, and a number of organizations send their lists, and Crimean Tatar Center also sent a list of 86 prisoners. We sent it to the President of Ukraine and to the Ombudsman on Human Rights in the Verkhovna Rada, to Lyudmila Denisova. On the eve of the Normandy meeting, Normandy 4 meeting, and I would like to provide my opinion, and I believe experts will support me. I do not have illusions that in 2020 Crimean Tatar prisoners will be released. There may be several factors. There was a high chance to release the biggest number of Crimean Tatars when there was a swap 35 for 35, because everything is related to some topic. When there was a swap 35 to 35, there was a decision of maritime court of, and Russia should have released the Marines, and Russia wanted to show goodwill, and they tried to broaden it, and they included in this list those political prisoners of Crimea that became toxic for them. At all international platforms, their names are mentioned. That we saw Sentsov, Kolchenko, Dembekirov. A lot was said about him, and there was decision in accordance with Rule 39 concerning him. So this was connected to the Normandy process. There are two subjects, France and Germany, who are interested. They position themselves as those who help to resolve the conflict in the east of Ukraine. And at that time, they said that we won't believe that in December on the list there will be representatives of Crimea. So if we are speaking about Normandy 4, I don't believe that the representatives of prisoners from Crimea will be included. But it may be. Russian Federation is really interested to restore the supply of water. According to the data we have, in March there will be big problems with water in Crimea because all those underground waters that they use, they drilled more than 30 wells, especially in the north and east of Crimea. But there is depletion of water. Maybe they will swap water for political prisoners. In this case, maybe we should be strong, and for the next 2 years, Russia will have to leave Crimea because they won't have water, because there is no other source of water. Also about the swap or release. In 2019, in the case of International Court Ukraine against Russian Federation, there are cases about discrimination, and the case will be continued. It will be heard in substance, and maybe there may be an intermediate decision that there is racial and religious discrimination, and ethnic Ukrainians and Crimean Tatars, they are among political prisoners, and they should be released. And we would see this opportunity, the open window, when we will be able to speak about possibility of release. We are pragmatic people. The only task, not only lists, we should support relatives. We should clearly focus on the work at the international level in order that all those people on the lists, all those names, they should be toxic for Russian Federation, and Russian Federation should be interested to get rid as soon as possible of these people in order to decrease sanction policy in relation to Russian Federation. And also we are going back to our diagram. Please repeat the question. I would like to specify the number of political prisoners in Crimea, including Crimean Tatars. On this diagram, we have full information. We spoke about political prisoners and those who were persecuted. These are 165 people. These are criminal cases. These are not administrative cases, because it is difficult to state the position in administrative cases, but we work on this. 165 political prisoners and those who are persecuted. Those who are in FSB pretrial detention facilities, and Vaitov was released. We may say that 92, this is blue sector and the orange sector of our diagram. Out of them, Crimean Tatars, we didn't exclude them, but on the side we will have it. These are 67. 67 out of them are representatives of Crimean Tatar people. These are those who directly are now in the behind bars. Representatives also who are under arrest. Suspended sentences also provided. Other questions, please? If there are no questions, we thank you all for attention, and this is the end of press briefing. We would like to thank you all, and we hope that by joint effort we will be able to reach the release of all our compatriots. Thank you.